Good evening, and welcome back. Tonight, we journey through the shortest days of the year, when darkness lingers longest and the cold bites deepest. This is the season when humanity has always sought light, warmth, and hope. This is the story of Christmas, a celebration woven from ancient winters, pagan fire, Christian faith, and the dreams of generations who refused to let winter have the final word. Get cozy, settle in, and let's begin. Part 1. The ancient darkness before Christmas, the winter festivals. Long before anyone celebrated Christmas, long before the name was even spoken, humans feared the winter, and in their fear, they created rituals to hold back the darkness. The winter solstice. Our ancient ancestors watched the sun with desperate attention. Each day after the summer solstice, the sun rose a little later, set a little earlier. The world grew colder, the nights grew longer, and no one knew, not with certainty, whether the sun would return. The winter solstice, occurring around December 21st in the northern hemisphere, marked the longest night of the year. It was a threshold moment, a pivot point. After this night, the days would begin to lengthen again. The sun would return. Light would overcome darkness. But first, there was this longest night to endure. Across the ancient world, different peoples marked this moment with festivals, each unique yet sharing common threads: fire, feasting, evergreens, and the desperate hope that spring would come again. Saturnalia, Rome's winter celebration. In ancient Rome, the winter season belonged to Saturn, the god of agriculture and time. Saturnalia began on December 17th and lasted for a week, though later it extended even longer. It was Rome's most popular festival, a time when the normal order of society turned upside down. A world turned upside down. During Saturnalia, slaves dined with their masters, or the masters served the slaves. Gambling, normally illegal, was permitted. People exchanged gifts, usually small items like candles, representing the return of light, or small figurines called sigillaria. Homes were decorated with wreaths and greenery. The streets filled with crowds shouting, "Io Saturnalia," the ancient equivalent of "Merry Christmas." A mock king, the lord of misrule, was chosen to preside over the festivities. He could command anyone to do anything during the festival, no matter how ridiculous. It was a safety valve for a hierarchical society, a brief moment when the pressure could be released, when the powerless could mock the powerful, when joy and chaos reigned together. The Romans understood something profound. In the depth of winter, when nature seems dead and darkness prevails, humanity needs to remember laughter, to feast when stores run low, to give gifts when resources are scarce. It was an act of defiance against winter itself. Yule, the Nordic midwinter far to the north, where winters were even harsher and nights even longer. The Germanic and Norse peoples celebrated Yule. It began on the winter solstice and lasted for 12 days, a number that would echo through Christmas traditions for millennia. The Yule log, the centerpiece of Yule, was the Yule log, an enormous piece of wood that would be set ablaze and kept burning throughout the 12 days of celebration. The log had to come from the household's own land, and a piece of it was saved to kindle the next year's fire, creating an unbroken chain of warmth and light through the generations. Families would gather around this fire telling stories of gods and heroes. Odin, the All-Father, was said to lead the wild hunt across the winter sky during Yule, a ghostly procession of the dead riding through the darkness. Children left offerings in their boots, hay and carrots for Odin's 8-legged horse, Sleipnir. In return, Odin would leave gifts. Sound familiar? The Norse decorated their homes with evergreens, holly, ivy, mistletoe. plants that remained green even when all else had died. These were sacred, symbols of life's persistence, nature's promise that death was not final. Mistletoe, in particular, was holy to the Druids and the Norse. It grew without roots in the earth, suspended between earth and sky, a plant of magic and mystery. Sol Invictus, the unconquerable sun, by the 3rd century A.D., Rome had absorbed countless cultures and their gods. Among the most popular was Sol Invictus, the unconquerable sun, a solar deity whose festival was celebrated on December 25th. This date was significant. It fell just after the winter solstice, when the lengthening of days became noticeable. The sun was returning. Light was unconquered. The festival of Sol Invictus involved games, races, and celebrations. Emperor Aurelian made it an official Roman holiday in 274 AD, attempting to unify the empire's diverse peoples under a single solar cult. The sun, after all, shone on everyone equally. This date, December 25th, would prove fateful. Part 2. The Birth of Christmas. The Christian Beginning. Here's a surprising truth. The Bible never mentions the date of Jesus' birth. The Gospels of Matthew and Luke describe the nativity, but give no season, no month, no day. Early Christians didn't celebrate birthdays at all. That was a pagan custom. What mattered was Jesus' death and resurrection, not his birth. Why December 25th? For the first 3 centuries of Christianity, Jesus' birth went unmarked. Different churches, if they celebrated it at all, chose different dates. Some said May, others April or January. The Eastern Orthodox Church settled on January 8th, the feast of the Epiphany. But in the 4th century, the Western Church chose December 25th. Why? The traditional explanation is strategic. Christianity was now the official religion of Rome thanks to Emperor Constantine. The Church wanted to replace pagan festivals with Christian ones. Saturnalia, Yule, and Sol Invictus all clustered around the winter solstice. By placing Christ's birth on December 25th, the Church could offer an alternative to these popular pagan celebrations, gradually transforming their meaning while preserving their festive spirit. There's another theory, more theological. Early Christians believed Jesus was conceived on the same day he died. Since tradition placed the crucifixion on March 25th, exactly 9 months later would be December 25th. Symbolically perfect, the light of the world born just as the sun begins its return, darkness giving way to light. Whatever the reason, December 25th became Christmas, Christ's Mass, the celebration of Jesus' birth. The Christmas story. The story itself is familiar, yet each telling reveals something new. Mary, a young woman in Nazareth, receives a visit from the angel Gabriel. She will bear a son, conceived by the Holy Spirit, who will be the Messiah, the promised one. She accepts this destiny with words that echo through centuries. Let it be to me according to your word. Joseph, her betrothed, plans to quietly end their engagement when he discovers her pregnancy until an angel appears to him in a dream, confirming the miraculous nature of her child. He takes Mary as his wife. The journey to Bethlehem. Then comes the census ordered by Caesar Augustus. Every man must return to his ancestral home to be counted. For Joseph, of the line of David, this means Bethlehem, the city of David, some 80 miles south of Nazareth. Mary, 9 months pregnant, travels with him. When they arrive, the town is crowded with others returning for the census. There is no room at the inn. They find shelter where they can. Tradition says a stable, a cave used for animals. There, on that night, in that humble place, Mary gives birth. She wraps the infant in strips of cloth, swaddling bands, and lays him in a manger, a feeding trough for animals. Shepherds and angels Outside Bethlehem, shepherds are watching their flocks by night. These are not romantic figures. Shepherds were among the lowest in society, poor, uneducated, ritually unclean by religious law. They lived outdoors with the animals, unable to observe all the detailed purity requirements of Jewish faith. To them, the angel appears, and the glory of the Lord shines around them. They are terrified, as anyone would be. But the angel says, "Fear not, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord." Then the sky fills with angels, a heavenly host singing, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men." The shepherds run to Bethlehem and find everything as the angel said. The baby, wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. They spread the word of what they've seen and heard, then return to their flocks, glorifying and praising God. The first people to receive the news of Christianity's central event were not priests or kings, but poor shepherds. The message was clear. This gospel was for everyone, especially the lowly and forgotten, the wise men. Sometime later, the Bible doesn't say how much later, perhaps months, wise men from the east arrive in Jerusalem. They are magi, likely Persian scholars of astronomy and astrology. Following a star they interpret as signaling the birth of a great king. They ask King Herod, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." Herod, paranoid and cruel, is troubled. He consults the chief priests and scribes, who tell him the Messiah is prophesied to be born in Bethlehem. Herod sends the Magi there, asking them to report back so he too can worship the child. His real intent is murder. The Magi find Jesus, now in a house with Mary. They present gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold for a king, frankincense for a deity. It was used in temple worship. And myrrh for burial. It was used to anoint the dead. Gifts acknowledging Jesus as king, God, and mortal. Warned in a dream not to return to Herod, the Magi depart by another route. An angel warns Joseph in a dream to flee to Egypt, for Herod will seek to kill the child. Joseph takes Mary and Jesus and escapes by night. Herod, enraged at being outwitted, orders the slaughter of all male children in Bethlehem 2 years old and under. It's a horror that echoes through history. Innocent blood spilled by a threatened tyrant. But Jesus escapes, remaining in Egypt until Herod's death, then returning to Nazareth. This is the story at the heart of Christmas. A young mother, a faithful father, a baby born in poverty, visited by both the lowest shepherds and the highest scholars, threatened by power, yet protected by providence. It's a story of vulnerability and strength, humility and majesty, darkness and light. Part the third. Christmas through the ages. The Middle Ages? Christmas becomes a season. In medieval Europe, Christmas evolved into a central feast of the Christian year. It wasn't just one day, but a season stretching from December 25th through January 6th, the Feast of the Epiphany. These were the 12 days of Christmas, a period of celebration between the birth and the visit of the Magi. Feasting and festivity. Medieval Christmas was rowdy. Churches held solemn masses, but outside, the celebrations resembled the old Saturnalia. There was feasting, often the only time peasants ate meat. There was drinking, games, and the election of a lord of misrule or boy bishop, echoing the Roman tradition of temporary role reversal. Mumming and wassailing were popular. Mummers dressed in costumes and performed plays, going door to door. Wassailers carried bowls of spiced ale or cider, singing and offering drinks to their neighbors in exchange for gifts or food. Wassail comes from the Old English ways hail, meaning be well or be healthy. It was a blessing, a toast, a wish for prosperity. Homes were decorated with holly, ivy, and mistletoe, those same evergreens the pagans had used. The church gave them new meaning. Holly's red berries represented Christ's blood, its sharp leaves the crown of thorns. Ivy, which clings and doesn't let go, represented the faithful's attachment to God, the nativity play. The church used Christmas as a teaching tool. Nativity plays performed in churches and town squares told the Christmas story in ways illiterate peasants could understand. These mystery plays grew more elaborate over time, incorporating humor, local references, and spectacular effects. The shepherds became comic characters speaking in rustic dialects. Herod ranted and raved, becoming the archetypal villain. These plays shaped how Europe imagined Christmas for centuries. The stable, the animals, the star. These visual elements come largely from medieval stagecraft, filling in details the spare gospel accounts left blank. The Puritan rejection. But not everyone loved Christmas in the 17th century. Puritan reformers in England and later in America looked at Christmas with suspicion. Where in the Bible did it command this celebration? Nowhere. The actual date of Christ's birth was unknown, and the way people celebrated, with drinking, dancing, gluttony, and disorder, seemed more pagan than Christian, banning Christmas. In 1644, England's Puritan-controlled Parliament banned Christmas. Soldiers patrolled the streets, ensuring shops stayed open and no one celebrated. The ban lasted until 1660, when the monarchy was restored, but the Puritan suspicion of Christmas crossed the Atlantic. In Massachusetts, celebrating Christmas was illegal from 1659 to 1681. Anyone caught celebrating could be fined. Even after the law was repealed, Christmas remained unpopular in New England for over a century. It was seen as a Catholic or Anglican custom, foreign to proper Calvinist worship. For many early Americans, December 25th was a regular working day. No gifts, no trees, no celebration. Christmas nearly died in the land that would eventually embrace it most enthusiastically. Part 4. The Transformation. The Victorian Revolution. Christmas's rebirth began in the 19th century, and its midwife was Victorian England. Several factors converged to transform a fading, disreputable festival into the warm, family-centered holiday we recognize today. Charles Dickens and A Christmas Carol. In 1843, Charles Dickens published A Christmas Carol, and nothing was ever quite the same. The story of Ebenezer Scrooge, the miser visited by 3 ghosts and transformed into a generous, joyful man, captured something essential. Dickens didn't invent Christmas, but he defined how it should feel: warm, generous, family-oriented, tinged with both joy and melancholy, concerned with the poor and forgotten. A Christmas Carol was wildly popular. It went through multiple editions in the first year alone. People read it aloud at Christmas gatherings. It was adapted for the stage immediately. Dickens himself performed dramatic readings of it for years. The book emphasized themes that would become central to Christmas: redemption, second chances, generosity, family, remembering those less fortunate. Scrooge's nephew Fred insists that Christmas is a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. The only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely. That vision, Christmas as a time when hearts open, became the Victorian ideal. The Christmas tree. The Christmas tree, now ubiquitous, was a German tradition that spread across Europe and to America in the 19th century. Martin Luther is sometimes credited with the first decorated Christmas tree, bringing an evergreen indoors and placing candles on its branches to recreate the beauty of stars shining through forest trees. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, the tradition spread to England through German-born Prince Albert, husband of Queen Victoria. In 1848, a popular illustration showed the royal family gathered around a decorated Christmas tree. What the royals did, the middle classes imitated. Soon, Christmas trees appeared in parlors across Britain and America. The tree was rich with symbolism. An evergreen, living and green even in winter's depth. Its triangular shape suggested the Holy Trinity. The star on top represented the Star of Bethlehem. The lights, candles, later electric bulbs, were the light of Christ, the light of the world. Decorating the tree became a cherished ritual, families gathering to hang ornaments, each one perhaps carrying a memory, a story, a connection to past Christmases. Santa Claus, the evolution of a legend. The figure of Santa Claus has one of the most complex genealogies in Christmas tradition, drawing from multiple sources across centuries and continents. Saint Nicholas of Myra. The historical origin is Saint Nicholas, a 4th century bishop in Myra, in modern-day Turkey. Nicholas was known for his generosity, particularly to children and the poor. The most famous story tells of a poor man with 3 daughters who had no dowries, meaning they couldn't marry and faced destitution or worse. Nicholas secretly tossed bags of gold through their window, or down their chimney in some versions, on 3 different nights, providing dowries and saving the family. Nicholas became one of Christianity's most popular saints, patron of children, sailors, and the falsely accused. His feast day, December 6th, was celebrated across Europe. Children put out their shoes the night before, and in the morning found them filled with treats, if they'd been good. If not, they might find coal or switches. Sinterklaas comes to America. Dutch settlers brought their Sinterklaas tradition to New Amsterdam, later New York. Sinterklaas arrived by boat from Spain each year, riding a white horse, accompanied by helpers. He knew which children had been naughty or nice, recorded in his great book. He left gifts in shoes left by the fireplace. Washington Irving and Clement Clark Moore, American writers, began transforming Sinterklaas into something new. Washington Irving's 1809, A History of New York, featured St. Nicholas as patron saint of the city, flying over rooftops in a wagon, dropping gifts down chimneys, but the key text was Clement Clark Moore's 1823 poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, better known as 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. Moore, or possibly Henry Livingston Jr., the authorship is disputed, created the Santa we know, arriving on Christmas Eve, flying through the air in a sleigh pulled by 8 named reindeer, coming down the chimney with a sack of toys, jolly and plump with a white beard, dressed in fur. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf. This Santa was no longer a stern bishop judging behavior, but a magical, grandfatherly figure whose sole purpose was bringing joy to children. Thomas Nast and Coca-Cola political cartoonist Thomas Nast solidified Santa's image in Harper's Weekly illustrations from the 1860s through the 1880s. Nast gave us Santa's workshop at the North Pole, his list of naughty and nice children, his reading of letters from children. In the 1930s, Coca-Cola commissioned artist Haden Sundblom to create Santa for their advertisements. Sundblom's Santa, rosy-cheeked, warm, human-sized, not elf-sized, dressed in red and white, Coca-Cola's colors, though Santa wore red and white before Coke, became the definitive image, reproduced endlessly. Santa Claus had become America's great contribution to Christmas mythology, a secular saint of generosity and childhood wonder. Part 5. Modern Christmas. The commercialization by the 20th century, Christmas had become thoroughly commercialized, for better and worse. Department stores created elaborate Christmas displays. The advertising industry discovered that Christmas sold products. Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, became the unofficial start of the Christmas shopping season. Gift-giving, once a modest exchange of small tokens, became a central feature and an economic engine. Parents felt pressure to provide abundant gifts for their children. The meaning of Christmas seemed buried under wrapping paper and credit card debt. Yet the commercial aspect wasn't entirely new. Medieval wassailers expected gifts. Victorian middle classes spent considerable sums on presents and decorations. The difference was scale. Christmas became a multi-billion-dollar industry. The Christmas wars, each generation has worried that Christmas was becoming too commercial, too secular, losing its meaning. In the 1950s, the concern was materialism. In recent decades, debates over Happy Holidays versus Merry Christmas, the inclusion of religious symbols in public spaces, and the place of Christianity in an increasingly diverse society have sparked what some call the Christmas Wars. These tensions reflect America's changing demographics and values, playing out in decorated coffee cups and store greetings, in nativity scenes on courthouse lawns, in school holiday concerts, the Christmas spirit. Yet despite, or perhaps because of, these tensions and commercialization, Christmas retains remarkable power. For a few weeks each year, the culture softens. Charity increases. More money is donated to nonprofits in December than any other month. Volunteers serve meals to the homeless. Toy drives collect gifts for children in need. Families travel great distances to be together. Strangers wish each other Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. Christmas music plays everywhere. Songs both sacred and secular, creating a shared soundtrack of the season. There's an understood permission to be a little more generous, a little more patient, a little more hopeful. Scrooge's nephew was right. It is a time when shut-up hearts open, at least a crack. Christmas around the world. While often seen as American or European, Christmas has spread globally, taking on local flavors. In Mexico, Las Posadas reenacts Mary and Joseph's search for shelter. In Ethiopia, Christmas, called Jenna, is celebrated on January 7th with special church services and games. In Japan, Christmas Eve is a romantic holiday, and KFC has become a traditional Christmas meal through clever marketing. In Australia, Christmas falls in summer, celebrated with beach barbecues. Each culture adds its own traditions to the holiday, making Christmas truly global while remaining deeply local. Closing, the meaning of Christmas. Why Christmas endures, Christmas survives because it meets fundamental human needs. In the darkest, coldest time of year, we need light. The lights on trees and windows, strung through neighborhoods. We need warmth, not just of fire, but of family, community, connection. We need hope, the promise that darkness is not permanent, that spring will return, that better days are coming. The Christmas story itself, a baby born in poverty, visited by shepherds and kings, threatened by power yet protected, growing up to change the world, resonates whether one is religious or not. It's a story about the dignity of the humble, the possibility of redemption, the power of love over might. Christmas invites us to be generous, to think of others, to remember those who have less, to forgive old grievances, to start again. For a moment, it asks us to be our better selves. The holiday has pagan roots and Christian meaning and secular celebrations all layered together, like a palimpsest where different eras show through. It contains multitudes, sacred and commercial, solemn and joyful, traditional and evolving, and perhaps that's fitting. Christmas, at its heart, is about the extraordinary appearing in the ordinary. The divine born in a stable, angels appearing to shepherds, strangers bringing gifts to a baby, hope breaking into a dark world. The eternal return every year. As December approaches and the days shorten, we do it again. We bring evergreens into our homes, defying winter. We light candles and hang lights, pushing back darkness. We sing old songs, tell old stories, repeat old rituals. We gather with family and friends, sharing food and exchanging gifts. We're doing what our ancestors did around winter solstice fires thousands of years ago, affirming that light will return, that community sustains us, that generosity matters, that in the midst of darkness and cold, we can create warmth and brightness together. Christmas endures because winter endures, because darkness endures, because we need, again and again, to be reminded that they do not have the final word. Closing, and now the story pauses. The lights on the tree glow softly. The stockings hang waiting. The winter darkness presses against the windows, but inside there is light, warmth, and the promise of Christmas morning. The ancient story continues, told again for another generation, carrying forward the hope that has sustained us through countless winters. Good night, and may your days be merry and bright.